Greetings and welcome to
YAS Podcast, formerly known as
YAS a Stripper Podcast.
This is our podcast, all of ours.
A podcast for all sex workers.
In this podcast, we will discuss the ins and outs, ups and downs of our lives and experiences as sex workers. I am your host, Daisy Ducati.
I am your heauxprahs, Gigi Holiday.
I'm your stripper queen from the north, Onyx.
I'm A.M. Davies, and this is YAS Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome. I'm AMD. I'm your host for today's episode, and our producer is Daisy Ducati here with me as well. Hey.
Hello.
Hey. Your hair looks extra amazing today. Did you Did you just do it or something?
Yeah, I just touched it up last night.
Yeah, you can totally tell. I just love the purple. I love it.
You. Oh,
yes.
wait. I did the eyebrows too.
Oh, snap. All the details. Yes. Well, thank you for producing with me, Daisy. I just love working with you. Yes. We have a very exciting guest today, someone that I've been wanting on the podcast for a while now. Did you look up Amari at all? Did you go on their Instagram account? You did? Okay. Did you see anything of interest? Anything that caught your eye?
I'm just really excited to hear what she has to say today.
Yeah. Did you see the banana post where she put a condom on the banana?
No, I don't think I saw that one.
Well, for some reason, that one really intrigued me. Probably because I haven't used condoms in like over a decade. And I was like, oh, that's how you do it. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just haven't used them in so long. And I was watching all the tips, like how she was like, and then you want to like push the condom over to the side before you rip it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so smart.
Yeah.
So smart.
They're so easy to mess up, you know?
They really are. And those Johns are slippery too, right?
Yeah.
Is it just me? It's been a while though. Maybe they've gotten better over time. I don't know.
No, they're slippery little buggers.
Okay. Well, we're going to have Amari come on and join us and tell us all about what she's up to. Sex coach, health educator, social media genius, agency, like goddess, empire runner. She's got it all. So, Amari, why don't you come in the room and join us, and you and I will chat for a bit and get to know you better.
Okay. Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Yes.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. It's a little trial and error, but we're here today, round 2. We're making it work, and just so grateful that you made the time because we see how busy you are. So it's just you're doing incredible work, and so we want to get into that. But first, let's just ask a couple of defining questions. Number 1, what are your pronouns that you would like our audience to know?
She, her.
Perfect. And do you identify as a sex worker?
No, I do not.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes we do have non-sex working people on the show, especially if they're experts in their field and they're adjacent to sex work, which we feel like you are. You would feel similarly.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. So can you sort of like round out what you're up to and who you are, like in a brief synopsis, let our audience know, who is Amari? Who are you?
Okay, so my name is Amari and I run 2 sex positive businesses. So one of them is called Admin by Amari Agency, which is a social media and virtual assistant agency tailored for sex positive individuals and people within women's health. So we help a variety of people, from sex coaches to sex workers to charities to sex toy companies, anything under sex positivity and women's health. And then I also run a second business called Sex Coaching by Amari, which is a sex coaching and sex education platform for anyone and everyone who is looking for sex coaching and sex education. So I'm an accredited sex relationship educator, a clinical sexologist, and a certified sex coach.
Aren't you pretty young?
I'm 20. I turned 27 on Tuesday.
That's what I thought. Happy belated birthday. I think that's what I saw. I was like, I think that I saw that post and it was like,
hang on a minute.
And but I'm like, I'm listening to your list of accreditations and it's long. You know, you've done so much in a short period of time. Like, what inspired you to go so hard so fast and get into what you're doing now?
So you know what? It was a complete accident, to be completely honest with you. So at university, I studied sociology. So that's another kind of sex-related accreditation I have, because I was able to basically pick the topics that I wanted to study, and everything I studied was sex work, porn, feminism, domestic violence, anything kind of within that remit. So that's sort of where I got my first set of like sex-related qualifications, I guess. But during that time I was working at a nursery, so I kind of ended up going down like the childcare route. But then COVID hit, and in this country, I'm from London, well, UK is the country, I guess. Nurseries didn't shut down during COVID, so I was able to graduate to a full-time job in the middle of a pandemic. So I was like, woo, I will take this. But when I was at schools, like really enjoyed teaching like sex ed, and we have something called PSHE over here, which is kind of like life skills, I guess you could call it. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And then I kind of switched over from the teaching. I got really ill and basically just couldn't teach anymore. And then, just reached out to a bunch of sexual health charities. And I'd worked with loads at uni. And then, I'd worked with sex workers charity as well at university. And then kind of, emailed a bunch of people. Someone needed a virtual assistant. And then from there, I accidentally started 2 businesses and got a whole bunch of qualifications.
Yeah. But you seem to have you're drawn to this, to sexual health and sex work in general. Like, do you know where that comes from?
I think the initial part, if we're going way back, I think my interest in sex stemmed from, I think I was like well, you know what? It was Tumblr, 2012 Tumblr. There was, before it got whatever it is now. I know they really censored the crap out of Tumblr in the recent years.
Yeah.
And I always had a real interest in just sex as a whole. And I think a big part of it when I was younger was because I wasn't having it. And even though I got older, I was having it, but it wasn't great. So I just had this real interest in all things sex. So that's hence why at uni I ended up doing so much stuff around sex work, sexual health, sexual violence, things like that. Like anything and everything to do with it, I was just really interested and really intrigued. And I do think, a huge part of why I decided to kind of go on to do a lot of sex coaching and things like that just came from the fact that I was still so fascinated by it, and I wasn't having a lot of it, if I'm being honest. And I think that was something that really kind of pushed me towards it. I was just so curious to like understand it, and like everyone I know spoke about sex very openly and things like that. Had a couple of friends that did sex work. So just as a whole, I just found sex just so interesting. And then here I am now with 2 sex positive businesses.
It is interesting. One of the things that I found super interesting that you said on another podcast, I think, which I saw on social media, and it was like so plainly said, I was like, duh, why didn't I ever think of it that way? Is that like how sexual health and mental health are just health, and that it should be considered as such. And why, even as a person who I feel like I'm experienced in the world of sex work and just sex in general and sexual health, how come I didn't think of it that way? How come I've never, like an experienced person never equated it that way?
I think it's one of those things that is so, both mental health and sexual health are still things that are quite like taboo. I would say obviously over the years, especially with mental health, it has become much less taboo than it was 10, 20 years ago. Absolutely.
Right.
But I think they've always just those 2 things. I think when we think of health, mental health and sexual health both seem to be like somewhat excluded or like separate things. Like if someone says, oh, I'm ill, people will think, okay, you're ill within your body, I guess. No one would think, oh, when I say ill, I mean there's something wrong with me mentally, or there's something wrong with me sexually, because they're just like the two ways you almost like can't be ill, when we know, obviously we know that you can, but it's just not the automatic thing that people go to. And I think where we've segregated it so much in terms of the different types of issues that we can have, it just, like, why would you think of them as one thing when they've always been such separate identities from each other and from just health as a whole? Like, they're definitely, like, if we're talking about any sort of all the health taboos, like those two I would say would be probably like the number ones. Like, we know about so many other health issues, but yeah, with those two it's just still very much just not, it is spoken about way more. I don't want to take away from how far that we have come. You know, I mean, I've got my auntie who worked in sexual health, 35 years ago, so there's a huge difference when I speak to her about it. But yeah, like you said, like, you're a very, very experienced person, and even you were just like, oh yeah, like that makes sense. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I wish that I look forward to the day that more of society considers sexual health and mental health like super important, like getting checked up, like getting a mental checkup every year. Like we don't do that, and I was having this conversation with my partner the other day because of your thread that I was talking about, where like isn't sexual and mental health also like, doesn't that intersect a lot as well?
Yeah,
and like,
of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I think it's really important to remember. So I think even things like, not even so much sexual health, but like if you've ever had like a chronic yeast infection, a chronic UTI, like things like that, how it affects you mentally is crazy. Like, it can really mess with your head. And again, that's more like gynecological like concerns that I'm talking about there. But it can, and I think also as well, if we're looking at sex in terms of like, if you have a partner and there's sexual concerns there, like that again will affect you mentally. You will think, that can, that's the breakdown of some marriages, that's the breakdown of relationships. There's so many things. And then going back to mental health, a lot of people with mental health issues might have a really low sex drive and not be able to work out why, especially if you're taking medication for your mental health. That can have a direct correlation to your sexual health and the way that you view sex. It's just everything intertwines. And even like general health, when people get ill, can affect their sexual health. It's all like their sexual well-being. It's just everything's interconnected. And yeah, I just don't think treating them as separate issues is helping anyone. It just makes it harder for people to talk about.
Yeah. So I'm having all of these flashbacks while you're saying that to like a past relationship of mine where there was like a lot of mental health issues happening for my partner at the time. And therefore, like our sex relationship was really failing. And then it was causing me mental distress. And so I'm looking back on that and I'm like, oh, where were you like 10 years ago? 12, 15. That was a long time ago.
I was at school. I was in school uniform.
Yeah. So I wish that I could have had this sort of like like this sort of information then. I'm sure it was available to me, but you know how it is. It's like you don't find it until it's like, and even like when you said UTI, the last UTI I got so upset that I walked to a nearby field and like screamed at the sky. I was so upset.
I'm not surprised.
Because they're extremely painful.
People don't realize, honestly. I had a UTI once and I was ready to go to A&E. I literally was like, I could not walk. I was just lying in bed like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Like, how do people I was like, no way this is a UTI. I was like, it has to be something worse. Like, and luckily, God, the NHS, beautiful. I was able to literally called 111. One of my parents went to go pick up the tablets, had the tablets, and I was fine. But oh my gosh, it was, I understand wanting to go and scream in a field. Honestly,
totally.
People do not realize.
We love doing this work, maintaining a platform for sex workers to tell their stories, entertaining and educating the public. If you love our podcast, please consider donating. We are now a 501c3, so your donations would be considered tax deductible. Go to yasstore.shop/donate and easily send us some support to help keep this podcast going. That's yaswork.org/donate. As a way to support our work at YAS Podcast, we created a store, the YAS Store. All of the art in the store is made by sex workers, and all of the profits get shared with sex worker artists. Go to yasstore.shop to get your gear. It's stuff for sex workers, pole dancers, and sex worker allies. 10% of profits are shared with sex worker organizations. It's a great way to support our podcast and sex workers everywhere. That's yasstore.shop.
So because this is a sex worker podcast, we definitely should talk about how does your work delve in, like how do your services and resources, how are they tailored to support sex workers? Where's the intersection there? Can you talk on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I've only very recently sort of become an agency. So beforehand, it was just me. And obviously some people, as you said, like you normally have sex workers on the podcast, but you know, I do so much work with sex workers. So I just thought I'd talk a little bit about like my background, I guess, which like not makes me qualified to work with sex workers, but how it kind of came to be, I guess. So I think from what we discussed, as I mentioned, I was really interested in all things sex from a really young age. And I was fascinated by sex work at like the age of like 14 and 15. Right. As I got older, I had a couple of friends that got into it. Cool. But when I was at university, again, everything that I studied was sex related, and I did 2 essays on sex work. And one of them was basically, I can't remember the exact title of it, but it was looking at sex work in society and how it's deemed, and like looking at the stigmatization and the violence that happened with it. So, because a lot of the stuff I did was based around feminism and sexism, the intersex of sex work, sex, feminism, and sexism was like perfect. So I was like, right, this is going to be great to do the essay on. So I just did like loads of work on that, did like a lot of research, and I was like, wow, this is so interesting. And obviously we have, you know, feminists who are, well, feminists that are anti-sex work. So that was really interesting, looking at like both those arguments of being like, okay, well, what point are you trying to make and what point are you trying to make? And I just got really, really into it. And then I did like another research on sex work. I can't remember what that one was about specifically. But yeah, so I did like 2 quite big like essays on sex work, and then I basically started volunteering at a sex workers charity. So I went to university in Nottingham. You guys are in the States, that means nothing to you. But the charity was called POW Nottingham, and they were basically a sex workers charity, and they also worked with like child like preventing child sexual exploitation. So kind of like 2 ends of the spectrum. And I just reached out to them and started doing some charity work with them. I did some back-end social media stuff, some back-end admin stuff, for about maybe like 8 months, and then COVID hit, and obviously everything just kind of like shut down. So I just became really interested and like really passionate about sex workers' rights. I think I just had a real interest in feminism and a real interest in sex, so it just really like intersected, and I just loved like the conversations around it. And even now to this day, like I love hearing people's thoughts and opinions, and it's been amazing getting to work with sex workers as well, and like sort of being within that community, like the different opinions that sex workers have. Oh my gosh, it is so so broad that it's just been really interesting. You know, like there's one thing that you could agree with, and another sex worker would be like, oh my gosh, like how can you agree with that? And I just found it really interesting. So yeah, when I initially started to come back to work in like the sex positive space, I was contacting like women's health, sexual health, and then like sex worker charities, because that's what I did at university and that's what I loved. And then slowly like I had a few sex workers come to me looking for services, so doing like admin, personal assistance, social media management.
I see.
Because it was stuff that I was clearly passionate about and had a really good understanding of. And then from there onwards, I just had like more like dominatrix sex workers come into me, and I was like, okay, amazing. And then as I expanded to an agency, When I'm interviewing people and things like that, I get their views on sex work. I've got some people that work for me that do sex work, which is great. So yeah, it's just everyone's very passionate about sex workers' rights that I work with. Everyone has an understanding of it. Again, like I said, some are sex workers. So
yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I get that working with you on social media as a sex worker, right? And you've probably become an expert at this point of how to talk about sex on social media, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah, I like to think
fair to say.
It's forever changing. Like 1 minute I'm like, yeah, and then 2 days later I'm like, no. But yeah.
Yeah, but how to like not get deleted, navigate with that. Like, has that ever happened to you with talking about sex so much on social media?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the first time I ever got censored, it was actually for a nonsense reason, which is how I know that algorithm was just nonsense. I was on a podcast and I commented like, oh, I can't wait for everyone to hear about it. And then they deleted my comment and like deleted the post. And I was like, what? But yeah, it's just, I was like, okay, like if you're going to block me, at least do it for something relevant. But yeah, so I would say the most recent, which I like telling this story because I want to share people how the algorithm is understanding what we're doing more and more now. So firstly, with preference, there is no one way to fix censorship. I will never promise a client that their account won't get deleted, that their post won't get taken down, that they won't get censored, because unfortunately that is just not the world that we live in at all. I can help with like if you are shadow banned and like getting out of the shadow ban, I can obviously make sure you don't get shadow banned in the first place, but it's not something I can promise. I've been shadow banned for stuff that have been completely wrong. Like my favorite one was I got shadow banned because I was talking about weed and alcohol. I have never once spoken about those on my profile whatsoever, and they still banned me for it. And obviously I appealed, and then a few days later they like lifted it. But this is what I mean. They're not even, whatever the algorithm is, whatever AI tool they're using, it's nonsense. So that's something I want to preference. I would say my number one tip for censorship is make your peace with it, because yes, many people are fighting to get rid of it, or to make it, actually have a real human look at it and things like that. But for the time being, it's just something that's going to happen, and you can't be stressed out every time. Sorry, my original point. That's it, the algorithm. So as I'm sure you know, people don't say the word sex on the internet, they spell it in whatever way they want to spell it in.
Sure.
So on TikTok, I put hashtag segs positive, so SEGGS positive, right? Segs is not a real word. And then I get a notification saying, I think they said they're removing the video or removing the hashtag because they've noticed that under the hashtag segs positive, there was inappropriate content. So what that means is that even where we're censoring our stuff, the algorithm is clocking on to being like, oh, people are saying this word, but we're noticing this content. So now we're going to flag this made up word.
Damn it.
So that's just, it's ridiculous. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I was like, oh, for God's sake. So it's just, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that is wild. It reminds me of a story also, your innocuous comment, the comment that like didn't give way to anything. Yeah. Dr. Carolina R talks about this too, and she tells a story about how she posted a photo of her with her grandmother sitting at a dinner table, and like that got her in trouble on social media.
It's honestly, this is what I mean when I say, so I do speak to a lot of people with social media, and I just say, listen, I'm not going to make any promises to you. I'm not going to pretend like these things won't happen, because like you said there, with Carolina, with me, nothing related to anything whatsoever. And it would just be like, no. I had a friend, had an Instagram account since she was in year 7, nothing exciting on it. One day, woke up 10 years later, it was gone. And she couldn't get it back. It was just a personal account, a couple hundred followers, nothing exciting, just gone.
That's so wild. And so I'm guessing that this is what you try to help sex workers navigate when they're posting on their social media.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like it's especially being a sex worker, it's so much harder as well to like promote your services and things like that. But
Yeah.
that's where it's really important to have backup accounts. It's important to have links, like your links very clear that go to like your other social media or website. So I always say, especially as a sex worker, have a website. That's yours. No one's taking that away from you.
Yeah.
While social media is a huge part of everything, it's not allowed to be everything. It can't, because with the way censorship is,
Yeah.
with the way social media is, even like irrespective of censorship, things like that, your accounts are still not yours. So it's really important to spread across everything. Yeah, especially like I do say like websites are a really good way to go about it. And like sometimes I do have people who
Yeah.
are like, yep, I want like social media management and things like that. And that's obviously really important. But I am also like, make sure you have your stuff elsewhere. Word of mouth is really, really important as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's social media isn't everything, which is what I like to tell people. I think people get very kind of like panicky about it, and I get it. The first time I was censored, I was like, oh my god, all my businesses are gonna fail, I'm gonna lose all my income, this is it. Like I thought it was the
Yeah.
end. I really did. But it's not, I promise.
Yeah, and I love the idea that you're saying, like, have a website. I think a lot of sex workers do have their own websites, but for newer sex workers, I don't know if that's really something that's like on their radar. But it is so important, because it's what you said just a second ago is so profound. Like, these accounts that we build up, they're not ours, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we feel like they are. We feel like, well, this is my content, this is my work, it's mine, and you're taking it away from me. And it's so painful, because it's like, it's sometimes years of work that is just gone. Do you have any like advice for how to like keep that work like preserved in case of something happening?
So backup accounts are really important, and you can do like collaboration posts with your backup account, so you have stuff there. And then there is a way where you can download all your data from Instagram. I think if you go onto like, off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but there's a way where like, every few months go onto like your account setting. I think you need to log in on your laptop and go into like the meta settings. It's really complicated. And you can download stuff. You can download all of that. But I would say just everything that you post, save it to Google Drive, download it to your laptop. It's, just back up all your content. And again, like spread your content out. Have, depending on what business you do, have LinkedIn, have YouTube, have TikTok, have Instagram, like spread all your stuff out. Like if you have the content, cross post it on everything, build up an email list, and then you can have that. Again, have a website. Like it's really hard, because I'm saying this, and like Instagram is like my main, like that's how I run majority of my business. Like I've got my own website now, I've got LinkedIn, but Instagram is still like my baby. But don't rely on just one form of networking. I work with a couple of other people who they're like sex coaches and therapists, and they've like never had, well, I don't work with them, but like I've spoken to them, and they're like quite a bit older than me, but they grew up like without any social media, and they've managed to kind of create their own business like outside of that, which is amazing. For me, I can't comprehend not being on the internet.
That is,
I don't know how that works. Sure, like maybe they might have a website or something, but they don't do any kind of like that digital stuff, because they don't want to, they don't understand it, and they're fine. And I know a couple of people who have said, oh, I know this person, they're not on any social whatsoever, they don't do any online stuff, and that's amazing. If that works for you, go crazy. I physically, like, my brain can't comprehend that. But people did it. There have been businesses and sex workers since the dawn of time. People were doing it. So there's a way there.
Yeah, I mean, because like what happens, horrible scenario, but what happens if like social media, something just happens to it altogether? I mean, in today's world, the way things are happening, I mean, so many people have been worried for like, I don't know, a year now that TikTok is going to go away, and people have like built their livelihoods on that. So like, you're right. You can't put all the eggs in just that one basket, for sure. You have to spread it out. Yeah, that's so smart. But like, what would I do if Instagram was like took away our account? Oh, it would be so upsetting.
Honestly, and I just think it's so, and it is sad because when I think, oh wow, like, I've worked so hard on my Instagram, that account is my baby, and I just think, wow, like it's not actually mine, and that's really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah,
it's like one of those little things that you're saying that I'm like, why didn't I ever think of it that way? But it's so like it makes me feel like more like I want to make sure that my account is backed up at this point, because I've never done that with the YAS work account, and I want to be more aware of that. I don't know how to explain it. It's gonna make me post differently knowing that, and like save differently, you know,
because even for me, like in terms of all my posts, like I make a lot of graphic posts in terms of like on Canva, so I know I've got everything saved in Canva. I know that I like download my images, so there's all like I'll be able to find everything. I guess it's just like it's building up that following again and things like that can be a bit daunting. But again, that's why you just, you know, I'm saying this, obviously I'd be heartbroken if anything happened to my account, but it is just something you need to kind of work with.
Yeah. I feel like we need like a coalition of like sex workers who like support each other if and when that happens to you. You know what I mean? Like, how do we like take one person that's like lost 100,000 follower account, and how do we like take them and like help them rebuild, you know, or anyone, any number, 100,000, it doesn't have to be 100,000 for it to be devastating, but like how do we support each other? I don't know, this is like a random question. I don't expect you to have the answer.
I do have some answers. So I've been in, so like I'm based in the UK, and I'm in a couple of group chats. I've got one group chat where there's like 80 of us and we're sex coaches. There's another group chat where there's 40 of us and we're like sexual wellness influencers or sexual health influencers. And we've had a couple of occasions where people accounts have been deleted, and again, we're talking about 100k followers. And the best thing that we've done is you can report a problem to Instagram and say, hey, this account has been wrongfully taken down. Please, can you like reinstate it or have a look? And loads of people will do that. They'll share on their stories like, hey, this person's account's been wrongfully deleted. You know, please check it out. And really just sharing that the account's been deleted and like writing to Instagram or reporting a problem. And then normally the accounts do end up coming back within a couple of days. There is on your end, if your account's deleted, you can appeal it, and normally you can end up getting it back. But I think that's where community comes in, because I've seen accounts be deleted and then within a few days the account is back up. So like truly the community really is such a big part of it.
Totally.
To be able to get it back. So I was like, that would be one of my tips there, is just to really find your people. And even if you're shadow banned, you know, getting people to like your posts and comment on them, like it can really help.
That's huge. Getting that engagement is really huge. So what's the success rate of people coming to you and into those groups, and like, you know, all of you reporting to Instagram? I mean, has there been a time where it didn't work?
Not that I remember. I mean, I can only say this has happened maybe 4 or 5 times.
Gotcha.
Sort of like the last year or so. But I think I remember seeing one maybe a year ago. It was a swingers account, and I don't think she ever got her account back, and she made a new one. But I just saw this on Instagram. I don't actually know what happened.
But generally,
I think that's the only one I've seen.
Right. But generally it seems to work. That's great. That's really great.
Get it back. But that being said, don't let that fool you. There are plenty of times where that will not work, and you might never get your account back. It's
sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is, I think, down to like luck sometimes as well, because
I hear that. So what are some ways that you want to continue to engage with sex workers and this type of work that you're doing into the future as we move forward? Can you share with us about that?
Yeah, so I think definitely in terms of like starting my sex coaching business, which I've really only started it properly, like I would say this month, I would love to be open to having sex workers as clients.
Okay.
So again, obviously I'm super like sex worker positive, and I have a lot of knowledge and insight, and I work with a lot of sex workers in my other business. So it would be amazing just to be able to kind of move that into my other business basically, and then just continue doing what I'm doing with the other one. To be honest, like I've been able to work with just some like amazing people and just like continue my like own learning and discovery. I just continue being able to help sex workers. It's been amazing. And I've got a couple of really long-standing clients as well, where we're going to collab on like a few like educational posts about sex work, and just
nice.
Keep up what I'm doing.
That's awesome. And what kind of, is it okay to ask what types of conversations or things come up in your sex coaching sessions, I guess you want to call them, like with sex workers? And the reason I'm asking is because typically in my understanding, you become a sex worker and after a while you sort of become a sex coach in a way, right? Through the
sex
work.
Workers are...
Yeah. And so I'm just curious how, when a sex worker is coming to you for sex coaching, what is entailed in that? And because we want our audience to know as well, to make sure that it's something, maybe people listening are interested.
Yeah, so to be honest, I graduated last month. I haven't set up the business yet, so I can't.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. All right.
I kind of answer that question. I think I can tell you where it's come from in terms of like why I sort of thought of that. It has been like me just speaking to sex workers in general. It's been really interesting hearing their views on like their own intimate, like their own sex lives, like separate to their sex work. And it's just been really interesting with just hearing like some people just say they like some people like they struggle to have an orgasm like when it's their own like when it's their own sex life, and like the way that they view sex and the way they view their partners and like dating and sex work and things like that. So it's just been interesting hearing kind of like their how sex work affects their like personal life, and it's not necessarily in negative ways at all, but there's definitely been just like comments here and there that I've heard that I thought, okay, wow, like that you could definitely benefit from talking like about that in like a deeper way. Or like I spoke to someone who was saying like like even though like my whole business is sex and I do sex work and things like that, I'm not a sexual person, so I find it really interesting doing it in like my personal life. And I was like, oh, that's like I would like love to to be really nosy and hear more about that. So I've just heard like various different thoughts and opinions and things like that.
Yeah, I have a confession to make.
What's your confession?
Before my current partner, who's amazing and wonderful and pleases me in many ways, with like other people who I was like, whatever, just hooking up with here and there. If I wanted to have an orgasm, I would imagine and pretend that I was getting paid for what I was doing.
Oh.
And isn't that weird?
No,
I've like never. I can't believe I'm saying this publicly. Like I've never admitted this publicly.
I get it. So like, do you like when you were doing sex work with like clients, not in terms of having sex with a partner, did you tend to orgasm then? So that's why you imagining being paid, or
sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, yeah. Because I mean, there's still like pleasure happening. So sometimes, but I would say less. Like it wouldn't. I would say more often I would not have an orgasm. But sometimes I did. Yeah, and and then I like didn't really want them to fully know. At the time, I didn't want them to know that they were pleasing me. It's kind of twisted. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
I get that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's something going on upstairs psychologically. That's why, like, I love the phrase "money makes me come," because, like, it does. Like, thinking about getting money, I'll have an orgasm.
No,
so, yeah,
no, I get that. But yeah, that's just so like that's so interesting to me. Like, I just love talking all things. I know everyone's so different as well. That's what I love as well. Like you know, someone, like, there's gonna be plenty of people who will listen to that and be like, yeah, actually, you know what, like that makes sense. I get that. So thank you for sharing.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that was my first time saying it out loud to a bunch of people. There's like lots of people listen to this. So that's fine. So to wrap this all up, what can we expect for you from the future? Like you said, you just started the business, so you would love to work with more sex workers. So where can like people find information and learn more about exactly like what it is that you're doing so they can connect with you better?
Okay, so for the Sex Positive Virtual Assistant Agency, you can find me on Instagram at adminbyamari.agency. You can check out my website, which is www.adminbyamariagency.com. And then for my sex coaching business, you can find me on Instagram, SX Coaching by Amari, because you can't say sex on Instagram. And then you can check out my website, which is www.sexcoachingbyamari. And yeah, you can find all of my information and insights there.
Awesome. Well, and y'all should definitely check out Amari's accounts. I have so much fun following you. Thank you for your posts. Thank you for your work. And thank you so much for your time and for being here with us today. It's been a real pleasure.
No, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Awesome. Yay.
YAS Podcast is produced by YAS Work, which is a nonprofit dedicated to educating and entertaining audiences about sex work through media. Learn more about how you can get involved in the podcast and our organization by visiting yaswork.org. That's YASWORK.org.